Let's do it. Happy Friday, folks. Happy Friday. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christopher Williams. I'm the STEM Education Specialist here at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Thank you for joining us for today's program. I love the energy. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for today's joint program with NASA called A Space for Us All. So over the next hour, you'll have an opportunity to hear from experienced NASA leadership. You'll also hear from proven and tested NASA astronauts. And then, by the end of this program, you're going to have an opportunity to learn about their past experiences. You'll find out what they're working on right now. And then we're going to pick their brains about what they think the future of spaceflight can be. Now, this is a special program, not just because of who we have on stage, but it's also special because of all of you here with us today. So thank you for being here with us. Now, to everyone who can hear my voice in the theater and everyone who's watching at home, I want you to sit back, I want you to relax and enjoy yourselves. And by the end of this program, everyone in here will have a much better understanding of what NASA is doing to make sure that the universe that's above us and all around us remains a space for us all. Now, before we get to hear from Victor and Leland, we have a very special message from the NASA Administrator, Bill Nelson.
Each February, NASA joins our nation in celebrating Black History Month to honor the generations of history, culture, and achievements of Black Americans. And this year, NASA is shining a light on building a legacy of achievement, connection, and knowledge. When you look around, Black history is everywhere. Whether you realize it or not, for decades, Black Americans at NASA have made countless contributions in air and space and science that have helped us explore the unknown. And we see it in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We see it in the astronauts and the leaders that you'll hear from today. So thank you to NASA's African American Employee Resource Group for hosting events and activities to honor this month. And thank you to NASA's Office of STEM Engagement for leading the charge to inspire young people through STEM. I'd also like to thank the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the Center of Science and Industry, and everybody who's made this event possible. Inclusion is one of NASA's core values. To be successful in our goal to benefit humanity, we will need to continue to embrace the ideas and talents of all Americans. We'll continue to share all of these stories. So thank you for sharing Black history and the contributions of Black Americans with our young leaders. Black history is American history, and it's up to you to carry the torch for generations to come. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this great event.
All right, folks, it's time to meet the astronauts. So, first, he was drafted in the 1986 NFL Draft, and he is a former NASA astronaut. Introducing Leland Melvin. Oh, all right. How you doing? Up next, he is a former naval aviator, and he is part of the Artemis team that will be going to the moon and beyond. Introducing Victor Glover. All right, folks. So This is a lot of fun for me. I'm glad that we finally have an opportunity to meet face-to-face and chat. So I just want to start by saying, you know we're all here to see you, Director Wyche, Director Turner, but do you know who's in the audience right here?
No.
Let me tell you a little bit.
Can I hear you guys first? Let me hear what you got out there. Give me some love.
All right, so we have several schools from Washington, D.C. and Maryland in the house today. The first, Cesar Chavez Middle School from Washington, D.C. We have Jefferson Middle School Academy from Washington, D.C. We have McKinley Technology High School from Washington, D.C. We have Chesapeake Math IT North Middle School and High School here today. And then lastly, we have New Hope Academy Middle School from Maryland here as well.
I think Chesapeake got them.
So before we get started, I have one quick thing to say. When I was upstairs, and I believe it was somebody from Cesar Chavez Middle School who walked in, and he looked at the NASA poster, and he said, "He looks like me." And in that moment, I just want to let you know, the tears came down my eyes, and that was a beautiful moment, so thank you, whoever that was. And if you were here and you know you said it, please stand up.
Stand up, stand up. Hey, young man, what you see, you can be. You've seen it, you can be it.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, let's get started with our first question. So I'm gonna let the audience know just a little bit more about you before you get to answering. So, Leland, you were selected to NASA to be an astronaut in 1998. You also participated as the Office of Education for NASA for several years, and you were, as I already said, drafted in the 1986 NFL Draft. Now, the question is, what motivated you to become an astronaut?
Wow, Chris, thanks for bringing us here, brother. What motivated me was a friend of mine, he handed me an application and said, "You'd be a great astronaut." Didn't fill it out. But that same year, another friend of mine filled out the application and got in. And I said, if NASA lets knuckleheads like that in to be astronauts, I can be one too. So it was really kind of this guy, but then John Young flew back to NASA Langley and was actually where I was working. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna listen to your work, the research you're doing, and you should apply to be an astronaut." Now, John Young walked on the moon. So if a man who walked on the moon says you should apply to be an astronaut, I think you should apply to be an astronaut, right?
All right, great, thank you for that. Now, Victor, you were selected to be an astronaut in 2013, and you just completed a 6-month mission aboard the International Space Station, and you served as a test pilot for the Navy. What motivated you to become an astronaut?
Thanks, Chris. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome to all the students and the teachers. And let's see, seeing a shuttle launch on television when I was 10 years old was the first time that seed was planted. But I would say that it bloomed, it blossomed into a full-grown plant when I was already in the military flying, and I was going to test pilot school. And I went to a conference, and one of the speakers, actually the keynote speaker, was Pam Melroy. Pam Melroy is the second female to command a space shuttle. And she was talking about her crew and the mission and the amazing things they did. They made a really critical repair to the space station solar arrays. And the technical story was amazing, but it was the way she talked about her crewmates. I played football in college. I wrestled in college. And they had this connection, this camaraderie, that's really what I had been chasing in my professional career. And I decided I'm gonna throw in an application and let NASA tell me no.
Oh, I love it. Perfect. All right, so both of you are astronauts now, or former astronauts, but you weren't always an astronaut. What were you like as a child? Tell us about your experiences growing up, please.
Well, I have to start with, I was born out of wedlock. My mother and father both loved me, and I didn't live with both of them, but they both prioritized my education. They wanted to make sure I had a shot at getting a really good education. And their love and support is not only what got me here today, but it's one of the things that I'm trying to reflect back into the community. But I grew up in Pomona and didn't know any engineers. My mother and father didn't graduate from college, but I had a lot of folks who invested in me saying, "Hey, you need to go to college. You like math, you should consider engineering." And it was listening to those folks that really gave me an opportunity to do some of these things. But at 16, I really had a dream that was to go to USC, like my other hero at the time, Marcus Allen, of the Los Angeles Raiders back then. And I wanted to play football like Marcus Allen did, and I knew, hey, I could play college football, but I had more confidence in my athletic ability than I did my academic ability. And I would love to talk some more about that journey as well. But, that just sets the context. I feel like I was a pretty regular high school student, but I loved math. And like you, listening to John Young, I listened to those people who loved me and invested in my future. And that is why I am sitting here on this stage.
Yeah, for me, I was, yeah, that's great. Give him a love. How many of you have read the book, Curious George? How many of you have read the book, The Little Engine That Could? My mother read those books to me every single night before I could even read. And if she was missing a sentence, I would complete the sentence. I knew those books inside out. One thing that Curious George had, no matter what he did, no matter what trouble he got in, he always had the man in the yellow hat who had his back. Make sure that you have a man in the yellow hat or woman in the yellow hat who's got your back. I always had that. Secondly, I think I can. I was a little kid, was getting beat up sometimes, different things, but I always thought I could because of what that engine did coming over the mountain. My mother gave me an age-inappropriate, non-OSHA certified chemistry set when I was a kid. And I mixed these chemicals together and created the most incredible explosion in her living room. I blew a hole in her carpet. Now, we didn't have a lot of money. I burned a hole in a black woman's carpet. I got launched into space. Force equals mass times acceleration. My mom was 5'2". She hit my butt so hard, I went, whoa! Mass and acceleration and force. I learned physics. I learned chemistry. I wanted to be a scientist.
Love it.
Boom.
Well, that is actually a perfect segue to the next question. So other than icing your backside and fixing the hole in the carpet, what other struggles did you go through when you were growing up? Yeah.
We're keeping it on the real, right? This is on the real.
Always.
I had some struggles with some things that happened to me from other people that did things to me that were not cool, and I had to figure out how to overcome them. So, there were some struggles there. There was some discrimination in my city of Lynchburg, Virginia. I was a janitor I think I was like 8th grade. And I was trying to make some money, so I was a janitor in this bank, and this guy came up to me in the bathroom, and I looked at him and said, "How you doing, sir?" He looked at me, I think he was the president of the bank, but he looked through me like I wasn't even there, like I was a ghost or something. And I said to myself, I never want to have someone feel like I felt. And I said, I will continue to rise. I won't let a person like that influence me, keep me from rising, because I always thought about Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was not a slave. She was enslaved. But in her mind, she was free, and she freed herself, got to freedom, and the person that was there said, "Oh, you can't go back and get your family." She said, "Watch me. Watch me do it." So that's the mindset you have to have, and that's what I had to adopt at an early age in Lynchburg to get through these things of oppression, discrimination, racism, all those things. So make sure that you have this mentality of doing what your journey and the things that you want to do with your life.
Okay. So we'll move on to the next question. It's an 8th grader from Toronto, Canada. Can you describe your mindset towards academics along your journey? What subjects challenged you, and what were your favorite subjects?
So I think I mentioned it briefly in my first answer. I've always loved mathematics. Mathematics has always spoken to me. And actually related to your last question, a struggle that I had in my youth, though, was not knowing that I had the stuff it took to succeed in college. And so I'll tell you a little story about math, but also about that struggle, and I think it answers both questions. So I'm 16, and I told you I'm focused on sports. I know that's a key to going to college, and athletic scholarship is a possibility. And if I had a big tournament or something, or a big game the next day, I might not do all of my homework. My test scores were pretty good, so I was an average student. And I was working on homework in pre-calculus, adding up numbers from 1 to whatever number. And I noticed a pattern. If I drew the numbers out as like ones, just tick marks, it made a shape, a triangle. And to find the area of a triangle, length times width divided by 2. And so I found that I could add up numbers based on a formula. And so I went into the classroom the next day between periods, and I'm scratching all this stuff on a chalkboard. Any of you know what a chalkboard is? Like dust. You've got to clean the erasers, chalkboard. Not these smart boards you got now, but I'm filling up all of Mr. Robinson's chalkboards. And he comes into the classroom and he looks up and he says, did you figure this out on your own, Victor? And I was like, yes, sir. And I mean, I was trying to decide on what the name of my formula would be. You know Pythagoras and the Pythagorean theorem. I'm like, okay, is it going to be the Glaverian or is it going to be the Victorious theorem? So I had a name and everything. And he says, this is good. He flipped a few pages in the book and showed me that formula in the book. So you could tell I hadn't even finished my homework that night. I got stuck on this thing. But the math was speaking to me. But he said something to me that changed my life. He said, Victor, why don't you teach this to your classmates? And that day was a bucket, a stone in that bucket of building confidence that, maybe I could go to college and succeed. Maybe I had what it took to go to university and graduate. Not just to be an athlete, but to succeed academically. And so that was a subject that I've always loved, and thankfully it's always loved me back. But it was also a part of my struggle with confidence.
Mm-hmm. Good. Up next, we have a question from a 10th grader from Illinois. Who were your role models, and what did you admire about them most? Were there any African-American astronauts or others from NASA that you would like to be like when you were growing up, or even now?
My biggest role models were my parents. They were school teachers teaching other people's kids, but they inspired me. My dad, when I think I was in middle school too, he drove a bread truck into our driveway, and a Marita bread and rolls on the side of the truck. And when I saw the truck, I think, okay, we're going into the bread business. I'm gonna be delivering bread out of the side of this truck when he drives into a place. He said, no, this is a camper. I said, no, I can read Marita bread and rolls. Over that summer, we rewired the van. We built bunk beds that flipped down. My mom made curtains for the windows. We repurposed this bread truck that cost $500 into a recreational vehicle that we went to the Great Smoky Mountains, went to Virginia Beach. We were camping in a bread truck, but I would have never known the difference in a $40,000 Winnebago compared to our tricked out bread truck. But I didn't realize it until it got painted. So if you have a vision for something, that vision something can be repurposed into your vision, and it might not cost $40,000, it might cost $500.
Thank you for that, I love that. Next, we have a question from an 8th grader at Foxborough Regional Charter School in Massachusetts. Why do you think it is vital that people know the impacts and contributions of African Americans in STEM?
I think it's important because, as the video stated earlier, Administrator Nelson said this: Black history is American history. I would take it a step further and say it's human history. It's our story. There are Black people all over the world, not just in this country. And actually here, listen, what I think is just what I think. Let me go back to the source. I believe in first principles and primary sources. Ask your teacher what that means if those terms don't mean anything to you now. Those are very important. Instead of asking someone what another person said about it, go to the source. And the person who started what was then called Negro History Week, Carter Woodson, the second Black man to get a doctorate degree from Harvard. These are his own words. He wrote it in the Journal of Negro History in 1927. And he said, "We need not study Negro history, but the Negro in history. What we need is not the history of selected races or nations, but the history of the world, void of national, racial, or religious bias." Why do we need to know Black history? Because it is one important facet of our story. It's all of ours. All of us should be able to celebrate these accomplishments, no matter what you look like, no matter how old you are, or where or when you come from. It's our story. That's why, and we should take ownership of it.
Amen, brother.
All right. Thank you. An upperclassman from Bard High School, Early College in New Jersey asked, have you ever experienced imposter syndrome And what did you do to overcome it, or you still deal with it?
Whoa, whoa. Listen, I just have to first of all answer that question very clearly. Yes. And I'll tell you, I believe no person deserves this amazing job that we get to do. It's like a relay race. You know, we get the stick, and eventually I'm going to hand it off to your generation. But while I'm in this seat, I'm trying to do my best to make sure that this patch does not take away from the value of this patch. But when I showed up to this job, I did not think I was qualified. But I will tell you this, I work really hard to make sure that nobody else feels that way. Does that make sense?
I never imagined being an astronaut. I never, in my wildest dreams, imagined it until my friend said, this is something you can do. And then when I got into the astronaut corps, you know, I was one of 31. You know, I always joke with people, I say, can you find me in the picture? It's like the little black spot in the back, right? And I never studied about being an astronaut, never learned about it. But then once I got selected, I'm like, you know what? I'm here just like everyone else. And I got to do my best, I got to work hard. But for those first times, I'd never flown an airplane before. Most of my classmates had flown planes and done all these things. But if you just put that work ethic in, that imposter syndrome of you thinking that because you haven't done what everyone else has done, doesn't mean that you can't catch up and do it. And that's what helped me get through those years of training. So yes, I have had imposter syndrome.
Thank you. So I'm going to take you guys back to when you were applying to be an astronaut. Tell us what you thought and felt when the moment you found out you were selected.
Okay, all right, so this is an interesting story, I think. I lived here in Washington, D.C. I was working on Capitol Hill, and I worked in the office of a senator, and I'm a military officer, so I'm used to wearing a uniform, and now I wear a suit and tie to work, and I've got this really nice desk, and I walk in past all these statues and marble and the brass. It's just a beautiful place to work. And so I get a phone call from Houston, and by the time I answer it, no one's there. So I call back, and I'm on hold what seems like forever. And so I finally get to hear from Janet Kavandi, who was the chair of our selection board. She says, do you want to come down to Houston and begin astronaut candidate training? What do you think I said? There's only one answer to this.
Yes.
Of course. And so I hung up the phone. They told us not to tell anyone else, you know, until the public release came out. But I told my mother and father. And then I called my wife and I said, hey, we don't have to worry about finding another place to live in D.C. Our lease was up on our home and we were trying to find another place because we were going to stay here in D.C. So I said, we don't have to worry about finding another place because we're moving to Houston. And so I get off the phone with all of my family members, and I'm standing in the rotunda in the Russell Senate Office building. It's this beautiful, you know, space with brass and marble everywhere. And I look down, and I'm wearing this suit, and I just felt like I was in a dream. I was 37 years old, and I'm standing in Congress, and I'm in there pinching myself because I think it's a dream. And so it was neat. The next morning, we got an email, all 8 of us, the 8 of us who were selected for the 2013 class. We had an email from Janet that said, the subject line was, it was not a dream. Because it really did feel like a dream. Pretty amazing day.
Yeah, I'll keep going. 11th grader from New York asked, what training is necessary to become an astronaut, and what skills and abilities do you need to develop?
All skills. I mean, it's about working together as a team. I think our sports training has really helped us with that because you do land survival training, you do water survival training, all this training to get you ready to fly in this T-38 jet, this high-performance military jet that he had flown probably thousands and thousands of hours in, and I had never flown before. And so that training, systems training, for me it was the space shuttle, so all the different systems in the space shuttle, and just learning how to work together as a well-oiled machine to get to space in 8.5 minutes with malfunctions and failures thrown at you so that you can get to space safely. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So a 5th grader from Virginia asked, how does it feel during launch? And can you explain your first experience traveling to space?
How does it feel? In a word, amazing. Wow. There's so much going on. And I had the privilege of, on my first flight, I was also the pilot. And so our commander, Mike Hopkins, he ran the team and he was in charge of the mission, but I ran the vehicle. And so if he wanted to know something about the vehicle, I needed to know also. And so I had to know what was going on with all the systems. But it was almost as if I was two people, because I was having this experience that I was trying really hard to be present at. You know, and I encourage you young people, when you go to do these amazing things, it's easy to want to watch it through your phone. You know, when you get somewhere significant, what's one of the first things that some of us do? We have a habit of whipping out our phone, and it's important to be present. Just the smells and the sounds, those small things you pick up when you're really paying attention, those are important. And so I was trying to be present and enjoy this experience that I had never experienced before, but then also I had a job to do. You better be reading those gauges. Know the speed, know the altitude. And I will tell you, the accelerations were amazing. I'm a pilot, a strike fighter pilot. We fly very dynamic missions. I've gone fast. I've pulled 9 Gs in an F-15. We learned a dogfight, and that's a very dynamic way of flying where you're pulling Gs for several minutes. But I've never pulled Gs for 9 minutes continuously. And aside from staging, when that Falcon rocket would disconnect from our spacecraft and then flip over and land on the water, that's amazing. We were accelerating almost straight up, and then we sped up to 7,000 meters per second, 5 miles per second. So for the last minute and a half, we're above 3 Gs. 4.5 Gs is what we peaked out. My face was being pushed back, my chest was heavy, and to breathe, I had to concentrate, like inhale. Exhaling was really easy because the weight of your chest just pushed the air out. And I weighed almost 1,000 pounds because I was 4.5 times my normal weight being pushed back in that seat. And that's the power of a rocket, to accelerate for 9 minutes straight. And then when the engine shut off, we were going 17,000 miles per hour and in orbit, weightless. It was amazing.
Wow, that is amazing. A 12th grader from McKinley Technology High School asked, what could you expect to happen to your body if you stayed in space for a year?
You know, being in weightlessness for a year is a challenge. You're in an increased radiation environment, and radiation is one of the known causes of cancer, so we're concerned about protecting astronauts from that. You also, because you're not standing up, you know, that's 200 pounds that I am lifting every time I stand up and walk around, and so you lose that all day. And because of that, your bones and muscles can atrophy. And so we have exercise devices in space that allow us to do strength training and cardiovascular training. We also try to eat less salt, which helps to retain calcium in your bones. And all of these things are due to subtle changes in your body. And we also have a shift in fluids. Because gravity is not pulling our fluids down toward our legs, they shift toward our head, and the pressure in your head we believe to be one of the things that causes the shape of our eye to change. And so some people have come back and maybe had to wear glasses when they didn't have to wear glasses before. One person I know of, though, my classmate Jessica Meir, the change in her eyesight was just the right amount where she went up wearing glasses and she came back with perfect vision. So it can affect your vision as well. And so we have lots of ways to try to, counter the effects of long-duration spaceflight. But if you're there for a year, your body is going to experience these things. And so you have to exercise and eat right, and also we take vitamins and supplements, and we have other things that we do. One of the main effects on you is the potential to just be lonely and feel disconnected because you're in space, away from Earth for so long. And NASA puts a lot of effort into connecting you with your loved ones, your family. We have a phone system and a video conferencing ability to keep in touch with our families.
And with your Afronauts.
And with my Afronauts. We had conferences, and some of my favorite days, after talking to my family, we were talking to my astronaut brothers and sisters.
So we have time for one final question. What lessons have you learned as an astronaut that can help the rest of us here on Earth?
Let me hit that real quick. The thing that got me so stoked about space was when you do all your technical assignments and things. I thought that when I installed this $2 billion laboratory to the space station, that would be my aha moment. That paled in comparison because Peggy Whitson was the commander. She invited us over to the Russian segment to have a meal. She said, you guys bring the rehydrated vegetables, we'll have the meat. We float over, we're breaking bread with people we used to fight against, Russians and Germans. It's like a Benetton commercial, African American, Asian American, French, German, Russian, the first female commander. Right, Benetton, right, sure. Anyway, diverse crew in space, and we're listening to Sade Smooth Operator while we're having this meal. and we look out the window. I'm flying over my hometown in Lynchburg. 5 minutes later, we're flying over Paris, where Leo Eilhart's is from. We look up to Moscow. So we're having this meal, and we see this perspective that we change the way we look at ourselves as human beings, because we go around the planet every 90 minutes, see a sunrise and a sunset every 45. So it changes your perspective. It's called the overview effect. And that's what happens when you go to space.
Hey, Chris, can I take a second? Just 30 more seconds. Put a picture of the Earth up here. I see you flipping the slides. Just find one that has a lot of Earth in it. Just put the Earth up there on the screen, please. Here's a lesson the world needs. We as the ambassadors who have gone to space, have to share this with you. We're all astronauts. We're all astronauts. Come on, put an Earth picture up there for me. What I would say if I was pointing to a giant picture of the Earth is that's our spaceship. When we're in space, we have to work hard to take care of those machines because those machines keep us alive. And we trust in each other because we also have the ability to keep each other alive if things go wrong. And that lesson needs to come right back down to sea level. That's our spaceship, the Earth, and we are a crew. We are one people, humankind, and we need to do our best to protect our planet and to protect each other, period.
Amen.
Leland, Victor, thank you for your responses and letting us know just how cool it is to be an astronaut. Now, before we meet the directors, I want to give a shout out to several schools who are watching us virtually. We have ASU Preparatory School from Arizona. We have Pennsylvania Virtual Charter School from Pennsylvania, College Park High School from California, Maple Leaf Public School and Valleyfield Junior School from Ontario, Canada, Portage West Middle School and Romulus Middle School from Michigan, and then lastly, we have Laconia High School from New Hampshire. All right, folks, let's meet our final two guests. So since 2021, she has served as the director of Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Introducing Vanessa Wyche, Director Wyche. Thank you. He has served as the director of the Langley Research Center in Langley, Virginia since 2019. Introducing Clayton Turner. Thank you. All right. So the first question is, please tell us about yourselves, what it took to become a center director, and what are some of the exciting projects that are happening at your respective centers?
Well, awesome. Thank you so very much for having us here today. And I just want to say hello to all of the students and to the teachers and everyone here in the theater. As center director, I have responsibilities for a lot at Johnson Space Center. We primarily do human spaceflight. So the astronauts that you see here today, making sure that they train, but as Victor talked about, the spaceships that we send them into space, making sure that those are ready and that they're able to take them to space and bring them back safely, as well as the operations that they do in space. And right now, today, of course, we're doing lots of research on board the International Space Station, where both Victor and Leland had the opportunity to go. And I don't know if we explained to you that we call that low Earth orbit, because that is circling the Earth. And we're also preparing, once again, to go to the moon. And we'll be doing that with the Artemis program. So we have spacecraft. We just did an uncrewed test of a spacecraft, and next up, we'll put our crew members on board, and we'll send them on an orbital mission to the moon. Lots of great activities that go on there. I actually myself began as a project engineer. I have a master's in bioengineering, doing research on astronauts, sending our payloads into space and testing and making sure that we understood how the human bodies operated in space so that we could do these long duration missions. I continued to do that for several years, worked my way up, and became a manager in what was then the Space Shuttle program that Leland had the opportunity to fly on. And from there, went into exploration. I have been working on our return missions to the moon and planning for Mars. But what it takes to be a center director, it depends on the center that you're leading, but at the Johnson Space Center, it's human spaceflight, understanding complex missions and programs, and also being able to lead an organization, so having leadership. Our missions are mostly always done by teams. And so you saw the astronauts on orbit, they're a team. If you see the teams that control the spaceships that they're on, they're a team. But we have thousands of people that work every day, different types of disciplines to make that happen. So everything from a design engineer to people that are producing the food that they have to have when they're on orbit, to clothing, et cetera. There's so many different disciplines, and for us to be able to do the projects, we have to have business professionals, so we have accountants, we have lawyers, so we have doctors, but there are just so many opportunities at NASA. And so just sharing that, and want you guys to know that any and all of you are a part of what space is. And so as Victor was saying, you know, you're part of us taking care of this Earth today. I want you to join us. I want you to think about NASA as being a career and join us in our journey.
So I also want to say hello and thank you for having me here. There's a lot of things we do at NASA's Langley Research Center. One of the things we do is support the Artemis program, and we had the honor of leading the development of a system that we hope we never have to use, and that's the system to get the crew off should something go wrong. So we do that in support of Johnson Space Flight Center. We also work in aeronautics. For those of you that have been on really long plane flights, and like this young man here in the front row, you're tired because you just want to get off the plane. Well, part of what we want to do is make that, instead of 6 hours across the country, maybe 2 hours across the country. So fly commercially supersonic. So we're building vehicles now to demonstrate how you can fly over land without the sonic boom. And by the way, that technology was developed by one of our hidden figures, Christine Darden. So we put in the work before to get here now. We also work on technology, so as Vanessa described, when we go back to the moon, it's going back to learn how to live and work on the moon so we can then go on to the Mars. We do that with industry, we do that with private sectors, and those are the things we contribute from a mission standpoint. How to become a center director? I think the first piece of becoming a center director is having great passion for the thing you do right now. Find the thing that excites you, that's the thing you're going to do well, and to keep your eyes open for that next opportunity. You're going to have lots of people that are going to tell you what you maybe can't do, but what you have to find is those things you can do. And I'll stop there.
Thank you both. This next question is submitted by Vance Virtual Village Academy in North Carolina. What advice would you give to students who desire to work for NASA? Are there internships and other training experience at NASA or other organizations they should be looking for and participating in?
Yeah, so I would say, piggybacking on what Clayton said, first, find your passion, whatever it is that you're excited about, because there's so many different careers, as I was outlining, that you can do at NASA. So, but if you're interested in being an engineer or an accountant, et cetera, we do have internship programs at NASA at all of our centers. Right now today, our internship applications are open if you're in college, and you can apply for those. But if you're in high school, middle school, if you want to go into STEM fields, consider joining your physics club, your robotics club, things where you can actually practice hands-on. I know for myself, when Leland was talking about doing his science experiment in his mother's living room, that's how I got excited about STEM. My brother got a chemistry set, and I helped him with doing experiments. And that got me excited, and then caused me to want to continue to practice. But I didn't have those camps or clubs or things that I could go to. But take advantage of programs, summer programs, things that are in your communities. All of the NASA centers have activities that you can reach out and be a part of. We also have really good programming on our website, nasa.gov/STEM, and there's lots of ways for you to learn. No.
All right, thank you. So I love the idea of the internships, and that's great, and we can have you come and join us on center and work with us. But what you have to bring with you is curiosity. You have to be curious about what we're doing, whether you want to be an accountant, communication specialist, an engineer, a scientist, a researcher. We want you to be curious. We want you to be ready to work on teams. Amazing things are going to happen when teams of people get together and bring different ideas, different thoughts. That's what we're looking for. And I'm hoping that after this event, I get to meet some of you personally, because I am recruiting 24/7. 335 million Americans, so now's the time. So you get to decide, how much do I really want to go work for NASA? You have some people here that can talk to you directly about that. So looking forward to meeting some of you. Find that thing you're passionate about. That's really important. And for those of you that are saying, I don't live near a NASA center, we can do virtual internships. We discovered that in a way we didn't know we could do it, but now we can do virtual internships. What you want to do is do that thing every day and see how much you love it, because that's what you're going to excel at.
Thank you. A fifth grader from Pennsylvania asked, what do you foresee will be the future of the astronaut corps?
So I guess I'll take that. So the future of the astronaut corps is exactly what they're doing today. Only we'll probably be needing more astronauts, because as we're doing operations in low Earth orbit, as I described to you, we'll also be doing simultaneous operations on the moon and preparations for going to Mars. So I see the astronaut corps will still need to have brilliant and capable astronauts, as the two gentlemen that are on the stage, and we will also need to have additional. And I will say, as you know, want to make sure that you guys know, our astronaut corps is very diverse. We have men, we have women, we have people of all different backgrounds, and also they have different skill sets. So we have pilots, we have doctors, we have teachers. So just want you to know that the astronaut corps will continue to grow strong, and we will need actually to have more to be able to do all of the missions that we'll be doing at the same time.
Thank you. This next question comes from Catherine Johnson Technology Magnet Academy in Texas. That's amazing. What is the process for recruiting a diverse pool of people for your team?
So I'll repeat part of what I said. When I say actively recruiting 335 million, I mean actively recruiting. My first day as center director, I spent with 3- and 4-year-olds, actively recruiting. All right? We talked about the solar system, and I was the sun, they were the planets. I spun, they laughed, we fell, and we talked, but afterwards we talked about it. And the 4-year-olds could tell me the closest planet to the sun, and the farthest, and the largest, and the hottest, right? Not because we wrote it on the board and memorized it, but because we experienced it. And I talked to 3-year-olds about coding, thermodynamics, engineering, and aerospace. 3-year-olds. No, I have not lost my mind. There are actually books for that. So I held a ball, and I dropped it, and a 3-year-old, she told me, I asked, why did this ball fall? And she said, because it's not a balloon. And then she told me why the balloon went up. A 3-year-old. So that's why I'm excited. I'm eager to talk to as many of you as I can. That's how we're recruiting. All of us, all 17,000 people at NASA are looking for you to come join us. NASA is an amazing place, but it is not an impossible place. We need you to come join us. We need you to come and join our industry partners. We need you in academia, because what we want to do is reach for new heights to reveal the unknown for that benefit of humankind.
Thank you. So all of you need to realize Director Turner is serious. He will try to talk to you today, so don't be surprised if he pops up beside you with some questions.
You know you're amazing when you can teach a 3-year-old aerodynamics.
This next question, what excites you the most about the future of NASA?
Well, I will say what excites me the most is, again, it's all of you, and it's the possibilities that we have together. Right now, today, we have more people that are going into space in different ways. Additionally, we have more companies, we have more countries that are joining and going into space. Right now, we currently have the US, we have Russia, we have China, but the Indian Space Agency, they're thinking about having people go into space. We're working with space agencies on the continent of Africa. So I'm very excited, because I believe that space is going to be just like aviation was, 50 years ago. 40 years from now, there are going to be countries, there are going to be people from all over the world going into space.
Yeah, I would say that excitement comes from the spark we see in your eyes and the things that you're going to do. And I talked about the 3 and 4 year olds, but the things you're going to do. And if you look back in history when Apollo was flying and that first landing on the moon, right, people didn't quite connect other than the excitement of the landing on the moon, but that also drove things back here on home planet. You know, there was a need for small, low-power electronics. So industry developed those to help us go to the moon. But now, for those of you that are carrying a cell phone in your pocket, that's what that created. We're going to learn things about our health and our bodies, how we are stronger going forward. So it's not only going to space, but it's how we're going to improve the world for everyone.
Thank you. So you kind of gotten to this question with the last one. How has NASA changed its focus and capabilities from the time you entered NASA up to now?
So I'll speak from a technology and mission standpoint. When I joined NASA, we were focused on return to flight. It was after the Challenger disaster. And we knew that we were trying to build the International Space Station. And so we have built the International Space Station, and we have had people living in space now continuously for over 22 years. Yes, I saw somebody's eyebrows went up, yes. And so the missions, when Leland said he went up and what he saw and the way that the space station was configured, then fast forward to when Victor went up and what he saw and the research that has been ongoing, different research going up. But all of that has changed. Likewise, I will say when I first started at NASA, especially as a female engineer and especially as a Black female engineer, there were not a lot of people that looked like me. And so now having more people of very diverse backgrounds being a part of our mission, I do believe that that does bring about us being better able to solve problems because we're doing it with different mindsets. So those are some of the changes that I've seen.
Thank you. Next question is for Director Wyche. It's from Franklin Middle School in Wisconsin. What advice would you give school-age girls who are interested in STEM careers?
For school-age girls, again, if you're interested in STEM, I'm extremely happy because I need you to come and join me in being in STEM right now today. But if you're interested, you know, again, one, do not let anyone detract you from your dream. If that is what you want, focus on it and you can do it. You may not necessarily have all of the things to be able to maybe pass a certain class or something. Go to your teachers, ask for help, study with your peers. Most of all, just keep holding on and polishing that excitement. Whether it's, you know, going to a summer camp, doing an internship, if it's reaching out, follow somebody for a day on their jobs. As a young person, if you don't know somebody that's in those areas, and I mean this sincerely, you could probably find almost all of us on either Twitter or LinkedIn or something. Reach out. We will help connect you with someone that will be able to spark your interest and make you understand more about what that really is about in real life. But most of all, I'm happy if you're interested in STEM, please join me.
Thank you. Why do you think so many people remain fascinated with NASA? What does NASA do really well?
So I think that one of the biggest parts of NASA's mission is inspiration, right? You see the face of NASA now. You see the changes that have happened and the impact it's made on our society and our home planet. I love the way Victor described our spaceship Earth. You know, I talk about it as my favorite planet, but that means we still want to explore others. So I think it's the inspiration. What's that thing that excites you? So I have a quote written on the board in my office. To be in the service of others with people I respect, what more could I ask for? Now I want you to think about that because it's just old guys saying some words, but think about doing something you love to do with other people that love to do that thing, and you're doing it for that greater good to lift up others. I don't know, it excites me, and I hope it excites you.
Thank you. I love it. Next question. By the year 2100, are there any potential advances or breakthroughs that you would like to see NASA make?
Jetsons.
Ask your teachers about that later.
Yeah.
Or your grandparents about that later, yeah.
But I would like to see, breakthrough in our propulsion capabilities. Right now today, we're planning missions to Mars, but it will take us about, 6 to 8, probably 8 to 12 months to get to Mars, and then we have to stay in orbit at Mars and then return. Those missions are going to be about a 3-year-long mission, and I don't know, but I don't know if the guys over here would be, they would definitely go and they would want to do it. But if we could figure out how to have some breakthroughs in our capabilities for us to shorten the duration of our transport, that would be excellent.
Yeah,
Clayton.
so I'll add, and I said Jetsons kind of tongue-in-cheek, but advanced air mobility. So wouldn't it be great if when you leave here, you go out and get in your vehicle and you fly home? Does that sound like a good idea? Can I see hands? All right. So how about if when you got in that vehicle, there was no pilot, just you? Show of hands, we still good? All right, so for the rest of you, 2100, we're gonna be there, right? We need to be able to move in ways we couldn't move before, and so we wanna make that capable. And when Vanessa talked about the propulsion technologies, we wanna be able to power those vehicles so they can get you safely from where you are to where you wanna be, right?
So what are some of the biggest challenges that astronauts and others face when they prepare to go to space? And this is open to everyone up here.
Well, I'll start. So one of the things, again, so I started my career studying the effects on their bodies. And so there are physiological effects that happen to them. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but, so shifts of fluid and that causing them to have some changes, but most of those effects go back down once they return to Earth. But it's also, psychological things that happen as well. So that's why it's so important for us to select astronauts that are able to work in teams. When you're gonna go on these long duration missions, you have to be a person that's able to actually function and perform and to be able to work cohesively as a group.
I would say this is a great question to ask our families. I think the training that NASA does to get astronauts ready is really thorough, really comprehensive. When I got assigned to the mission, my wife and I actually happened to be on vacation, so we were together, just the two of us. We had a lot of time to talk about it and think about it. And by the time we got home, we had decided to sit down and have a discussion as a family. And the discussion was essentially centered around this idea that, over the next 2.5 years, NASA's gonna get me ready to go work and live in space. Mom and I are gonna get our 4 daughters and our family ready for me to go work and live in space. And for me, that's the greatest challenge because there's not a syllabus, there's not a curriculum, there's not a pre-established training plan for that. But that part was just as, if not more important for me getting ready to go live in space for 6 months.
Wow, that is a definite challenge. So this one is open to everyone again. What is something that is not related to space or space travel that gets you excited? We want everyone to realize you are real people. You are not just, at NASA working behind the desk all the time.
So, and I'm not going to tell you the answer here, but for those that I'll get to meet, ask me about geometry in 10th grade, right? And then it'll kind of level set. I did not descend from on high to become center director.
Yeah, and go ahead, Leland. No, yeah, I completely agree. We are just normal, everyday people. I have a husband and I have a son, and we all love to, hike together. We love to go to the beach. We love to hang out together. Those are, normal, everyday things that we do as a family. And I have, my extended family, my sisters and my brother, we love to hang out together and just, have good family barbecues. We like to have oyster roasts, just the normal everyday things that everyone else does.
So I'll give you one global and one really little personal one for me. But because we get to live in this really unique environment of space, it's easy to forget that we are also members of our community, our local community. And I'm just like everybody's already been alluding to, is we're regular people. And so something just personally, I'm a father of 4 girls. One of them is a college student. She's in her 2nd year and she's doing marvelously. And I've got a work trip I'm going on, and she happens to be on spring break during that time, and she wants to go with me and hang out. And I mean, my 20-year-old wants to hang out with Dad. That, I am really looking forward to that. You know, people are asking me about the moon and space station, and I'm like, I'm gonna hang out with my 20-year-old, and I'm really excited about that. The other thing I'm really excited about, and I'm saying this because I'm also challenging you young people, I am excited about you. I'm excited about the future in general. Just when I go to schools, I get to do this a lot. And the last 3 weeks of my life has been this a lot, all over the world. I was in Israel 2 weeks ago, talking to kids in Hebrew and Arabic, and the same excitement for space motivates them to study calculus and investment casting, but also to take care of their health and to make good decisions for their own lives. And that excites me because you are our future. And our generation has done some great things. We've messed a few things up too, and I'm really excited about you taking us into the future and what you have the potential to do.
Just to piggyback on what Victor just said, I was at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I think I hadn't flown in space yet, and I was signing autographed pictures, and this one young man who was in middle school, he said, "Can I be an astronaut?" And I said, "Yes." And I signed it, "You can do anything you put your mind to, you can be an astronaut." Fast forward, I guess about, I don't know how many years, but I'm at a graduation, I'm giving the commencement speech, and this young man walks to me and says, "Hey, do you remember me?" I said, "No." He said, "I'm the guy you signed the picture to when I was in middle school. I'm graduating with my PhD in aerospace engineering because you told me I can." So that, to me, is what being a person to inspire the next generation is all about. Telling someone they can do it, and they do it because you said they can.
Yeah, I hope 25 years from now someone comes up to me and says that you were that guy on stage and you had all those astronauts and directors there. That'd be very cool.
Online too, online.
Online
Yes.
as well. Now this is the last question. Why do we continue to participate in space travel? We're going back to the moon and we're going to plan to go back further. I mean, what else do we have to learn?
So I'll start, and I touched on this a little bit. We're curious. So the James Webb Space Telescope just launched, and it's going to look back 13 billion or so years into the past. And you can talk to your teachers about what that means and the speed of light and all those things. We're curious. We're naturally curious as human beings. Also, as I said before, when we explore, we learn things that help us here on home planet. We learn things that change our lives because we're out there and exploring. So that is the excitement of going to space. So it's not just we're going to go to the moon and case done, but it's going to change your lives in a positive way.
Yeah, and I do think kind of like the early explorers of this country, they came and then they kept going west, west, west so that they could do more discoveries. And that's kind of like Clayton said, that's who we are as humans. We want to learn more. We want to see what's beyond what's in our eyesight. And so, we will continue to press forward. Right now, our mission is to go to the moon and to Mars, but that's not where NASA's trying to stop. We want to go out into the solar system. We want to go and see as much and as far as we can go.
All right, thank you.
I just think the most important thing is that the people in this room here, you need to know that your mission possible is what everyone has said up here. You can do anything you put your mind to. It doesn't matter if the people around you are telling you that's stupid, it's impossible, because on your journey with the right mindset, you can do anything you put your mind to, and you are future explorers.
Thank you. Director Turner, Director Wyche, thank you for your wisdom, your insight. Victor, Leland, it's been a blast. I've enjoyed talking with you all. To the amazing audience that we have here, thank you for your time. This has been a wonderful moment for us in the program, A Space for Us All. So I just want to say before we leave, thank you for being part of this Black History Month program, and remember that history is made by doing ordinary things extraordinarily well for long periods of time. So I want to have our guests here. Let's say goodbye to everybody and just see you all next time, folks.